welcome you to the December 1999 meeting of the White Plains Board of Education. This, as you know, is our last meeting of the monthly meeting of the calendar year, of the decade, of the century, and of the millennium. So I'd like to ask you to join me as we begin this meeting, as all of our meetings are begun, with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This evening, in addition to our regular agenda, we are, of course, happy to have a presentation of scholar athletes, and our meeting this evening will also have a presentation from the Authentic Science Research Program at White Plains. Just before we start that, though, I'd like to ask if there are any announcements, and I'll start with the superintendent. Ask Saul, do you have any announcements?
I have three announcements that I think would be of interest. First is to announce to the public the fact that our board president, Louis Trippett, has been selected to be on the board of trustees of Empire State College. So congratulations to you. You want to describe what that involves?
Yes, Empire State College is a SUNY college. It is a statewide college with 7 different locations throughout the state. It's geared primarily in non-traditional programs, mostly adults, that started college and didn't complete it or things like that. So it's a very exciting program, actually known very much nationwide. It only started in 1971. There's already over 30,000 graduates of the college. It has about 8,000 students enrolled at any one time. And I've already attended one meeting, and I want to tell my fellow board members the thing that impressed me is that they meet quarterly for 2 hours. Once I figure out how they do that, I'll share that information with everyone. But I'm looking forward to serving that capacity.
Great. Two other announcements. Some of you might already know this, but the 1999 issue of The Roar, which is the White Plains High School literary magazine, has been awarded a gold medal certificate in the Columbia Scholastic Press Association Annual Critique. The magazine received a score of 993 out of a possible 1,000 points. So somewhere along the line, they lost 7 points. Our congratulations to the co-editors, Valerie Martins and Sarah Rudo, the members of last year's graduating class, and to the faculty advisor, Skip Weinstock. And then finally, I'm very proud to announce that 31 White Plains High School students were named AP Scholars by the College Board in recognition of their exceptional achievement on the college-level AP exams. And as people know, we have a very extensive advanced placement program here at White Plains. Only about 13% of the more than 700,000 students nationally who took these exams performed at such a high level. Named scholars with distinction, which is the highest level, were Ari Friedland, Pamela Geiger, Yuval Grill, Mikhail Katz, Meredith Schwartz, and Nicholas Trenchina. These students had an average AP exam grade of at least 3.5 and grades 3 or higher on 5 or more of the exams. Next level scholars with honor were Terrence Donahue, Daniel Glover, Joshua Gold, Emily Magid, Ann Marino, Sarah Rudo, and Ryan Sikdar. Qualifications for this were an average grade of at least 3.25 and grades of 3 or higher on 4 or more exams. Other students qualifying for scholar recognition: Mikhail Barnia, Angie Bryce, Meredith Bunch, Jeffrey Burns, Arvin Cheng, Deborah Clampett, Joseph Fabiani, Daniel Fowler, Brian Hopkins, Francesca Jatan, Georgina Javor, Yaron Milgram Elcott, Julia Milliken, Nina Morrison, Ella Schwartz, Carolyn Sitkoff, Linda Toth, and Andrew Ying. Congratulations to all of them. Those are my announcements.
Do any board members have announcements?
This past week, I was pleased to go to two concerts, one at the Highlands Middle School, the 8th grade concert, and the one at the high school this past Thursday. They both were absolutely terrific. I want to thank Teresa Niss and her staff. It was really wonderful. And if anyone has any time this week, there is a 7th grade concert on Wednesday at the Highlands and another one at the high school on Thursday night. And you'd be very pleased if you went, I'm sure.
No? Any other announcements? Okay, at this time, turn it over for our authentic science.
A number of you might be familiar with this wonderful program that's been initiated at the high school over the last several years called the Authentic Science Research Program. We thought it would be useful for all of you and people in the community generally to get a better sense of this program. So, Bill, if you'd like to just give a little bit of a background and introduce Tim and the students.
Thanks, Saul. 3 years ago, Tim Selg came to the administration of the high school with the idea for initiating an authentic science research program at White Plains High School. And that program has developed in that short period of time to the largest program of its kind in the state, thanks to the wonderful leadership that Tim has provided. So this evening we have Tim Selg to tell you about the program, and then students who have been in the program for 3 years and who are now in the last year of their research, just to tell you what their research involves. So Tim, if you'll come up and talk a little about the program.
Thank you, Mr. Colavito, very much, and thank you, Board of Education. First, I'd like to start and thank Mr. Colavito and Mr. Birkin. Without their support and direction and guidance, we wouldn't be where we are today. And I owe a great debt of gratitude for their support, as well as for my students. The students we're about to see are the first group that came into the program, and they made it through all the way. So I owe a great debt of gratitude to them, as well as to their parents for doing all that they did. The program is a 3-year program. It involves sophomore, junior, and senior year, and students have to enter the program through a competitive format. And from there, they select a topic. Their first year, their sophomore year, is spent on researching a topic, coming up with an idea of what they'd like to investigate, obtaining the services of a scientist mentor, securing a summer internship, as well as putting on a symposium. The junior year, they're designing and developing their experiment. They're collecting, they're going through an IRB process if they're working on human subjects, where they have to make sure that they're not harming in any way, emotionally or physically, their test subjects. They conduct their experiment, collect the data, analyze the data, run a statistical profile, and then write a scientific paper. And then their third year, which they're there now, they're entering scientific competitions where they're going to defend their research in a panel of judges. So it's really a quick summation of a program that has been ongoing for 2.5 years. So I'm very proud to present our students to you. And if you'd like, at the end of the presentation, I'll let you answer any questions you may have on the program. So what I'd like to do now is bring up the students for the Science Research Program. Here they are. There's just 5 of them. And there are 7 more that weren't able to make it tonight, but their topics and their research is equally as impressive. So I'll present now our president of our student club, the Science Research Club, Jessica Lucas.
Good evening. My name is Jessica Lucas. My research dealt with sea turtles and their navigational habits by means of magnetic fields on the Earth. My mentor is Dr. Stephen J. Morale at Cornell University.
Hi, my name is Philip Robbins, and my research is entitled "The Influence of," an investigation of the influence of selected sense stimuli on the behavior of Panthera lucia. My mentor is Dr. Joshua Ginsberg, and he's the Director of Asian Science at the Wildlife Conservation Society.
Good evening. My name is Rafael Cruz. My research, title of my research is the levels of dissolved oxygen and hypoxia in Milton Harbor as effective with precipitation and temperature. My mentor, the name of my mentor is Mr. John Bensinga, who's a hydrologist in White Plains, who works for LVG, which is an environmental service company.
Good evening. My name is Mike Nino. My research topic was analysis of airport noise using a remote outdoor monitoring system of selected sites with airport noise and operations monitoring computing system known as ANOM. My mentor was Renee John. She works at the noise management office at Westchester County Airport.
Good evening. My name is Molly Greenfield. The title of my research was the effects of outside curriculum in eating disorder prevention in high school adolescents. My mentor's name was Dr. Claire Wiseman, and she works at the Cornell Medical Center in New York Presbyterian Hospital.
And I'm going to have to read this title because the student over here, Sasha Luque, has laryngitis. We've been wiped out with either broken bones or sicknesses this week, so we're getting creamy. The title of her research is the expression of heat shock protein 70 in a retinal ganglion cell after ischemia and reperfusion. Her mentors are Dr. Sansa Sharma and Dr. Mende Khan of New York Medical College. So that's Sasha's over there.
I know you offered us the opportunity to ask questions. I think the only words I understood there were sea turtles and airports. So I have no questions. I don't know.
To give you an idea of the accomplishments, and I can actually stay up here for about 2 hours, but I know that we have a time limit, so I'm going to make this short. But I want to, in perspective, what we have here as what these students do. This year, about 1.5 million high school seniors will graduate across the country. And there's a Super Bowl of science research called the Intel. It used to be called the former Westinghouse, but now it's the Intel. Of the 1.5 million seniors who graduate, 1,500 seniors across the country will enter this Intel competition, which represents 0.1% of all seniors across the country who are produce a scientific paper eligible for submission. Of those 1,500, we were able to submit 12 of White Plains High School students for the first time into that competition. And it took 2.5 years to get to this point, and we have another great group of juniors and another great group of sophomores following up. So a little idea of perspective. And I'm very, very proud of the students of White Plains High School because they impress me every day, and I'm learning more and more. So thank you for the opportunity.
And thank you, Tim, for all of your very hard work in that, as well as the students who obviously put in not just a one marking period effort, but several years' effort into the program. Thank you very much. Now call on our athletic director, Mary Escarano, for a presentation of our Scholar Athlete Awards.
Thank you. Congratulations, Tim, and your students. That was absolutely wonderful. Mr. Triffett, members of the board, Dr. Yanofsky, student athletes, coaches, parents, and guests. Tonight is a very special night for the White Plains High School Athletic Department. Usually we recognize our student athletes for their accomplishments on our fields, swimming pools, tracks, tennis courts. But this evening we're here to honor a very, very special group of young people who not only excel in the on the fields, but in the classroom as well. The following teams have been recognized as the New York State Public High School Athletic Association Scholar Athlete Award winners during the fall 1999 sports season. The first team, and I apologize to them earlier during our end of the season sports dinner when I didn't acknowledge them for something very, very special. Last fall, 27 members of the women's swimming and diving team qualified for this honor. That was the most student athletes in all of the state of New York, and that's an outstanding accomplishment, and I'd like to acknowledge them at this time. At this time, I'd like to call up their coach, Patty Gilmartin, who will present her students.
I'm sorry for my outfit. I just came back from a swim meet. At least I have my shorts on. A number of our swimmers couldn't be with us today, and I'd just like to announce their names quickly. We had a very rewarding season. I'm sure many of you are aware our assistant coach, Tierney Ahern, was unfortunately injured. The girls really have rallied around. We did a fundraiser. They're supplying dinners to Coach Ahern once a week, and so far that hasn't proved fatal to anyone. They really have shown great strength in terms of overcoming quite a bit. It was quite devastating. Coach Ahern is only 24, and for many of them, obviously she's closer to their age than I am. But they really have identified with her so much, and it was really a devastating blow. The girls really did a fine job for the entire season, and it was really a rewarding season because it wasn't just our record, but really how they pulled together and worked extremely hard to improve themselves. Siobhan Hopkins, who can't be here tonight, Margaret Hassan, Amy Koizum, Kristen Moriarty, Natalie Perez, Alejandra Restrepo, Courtney Rose, and Alyssa Yablo. And for the girls who are here, we have Catherine Berkowitz, her first recipient. Kimberly Edmonds. Kathleen Egan. Katie Egan. Aiden Lasher. Jessica Levy, one of our captains. Sarah Millman. Holly McCauley, one of our other captains. Lindsay McLaughlin. Lauren Rash. Jennifer Rhodes. Flora Rojas, our third captain. And Jonna Claire Sixdar. And our final award winner, Elizabeth Franchina. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Patty. Our next team is the men's cross-country team, Coach Lamont McCormick. I know he's going to mention it, but I believe they've been scholar athletes since the award was initiated, and they've also been. I'll let Lamont say it.
Good evening. I just want to start by bragging about our winning streak that we have here. Our boys have won their league championship for the 8th consecutive year in a row. We have a few gentlemen missing here tonight. Along with that, they were 3rd in their county meet, and they were 1st among Class A schools. We have a state qualifier, our captain, Jacob Bergman. Please step up, Jacob. He qualified for the state meet. This is the 2nd year in a row. He was also 1st team All-County. Also, Joe Fabiani, who's not here tonight, accepted to the University of Pennsylvania. Nice job, Joe. 2nd team All-County. Also, Brandy Holwick, who was 3rd team All-County. We had a team average of 90.9. And we had 13 members who qualified for this award. So this is our 1999 Scholar Athlete Cross Country team. Thanks.
Our field hockey team, Coach Joan Barron. Coach.
Good evening, everybody. Yes, you're seeing our manager, Amir. Yes, Amir. quite a few young ladies that couldn't make it this evening. I was just informed that they are in danger of failing their driver's ed class because they made so much commitment during the season, so they couldn't be here this evening, and a couple of them are home, obviously studying. Our team consisted of 24 players, and like Mr. Scrano said earlier, is that the swimming team actually made an unbelievable accomplishment. We had 24 members of our field hockey team varsity, and 22 out of 24 are recipients of the Scholar Athlete Awards. Our team consisted of 11 seniors, 8 juniors, and 5 sophomores. We needed 12 to qualify the award, and we received 22. Our highest GPA average goes to junior Megan Gorman, who couldn't be here this evening. I'm sure she's working on driving her car. Her GPA was 96.285. We had 15 members had 90 or above GPA averages, so that's a true accomplishment. Some individual and team awards this season. We had 6 all-league players, 3 honorable mention all-league players, and 1 honorable mention all-section players. So I was very happy. What I'd like to do is just recognize some of the individuals for their accomplishments, but before I do that, I'd like to recognize some of the students that couldn't be here. Senior Megan Gorman, junior Megan Gorman, junior Lindsay Trust, sophomore Lane Ruda, senior Jillian Chapman, senior Kimberly Mooney, senior Katie Hutnick, senior Lauren Olite, and senior Christina Delfino. The following individuals I'd like to be able to recognize: sophomore Emily Ansbacher, sophomore Jen Paulding, sophomore Kristen Pasqua, juniors Jessica Clinton Hillman, junior Alexis Goodman, junior Rebecca Klinger, junior Rachel McGregor, junior Taryn Tomaselli, and our seniors, excuse me, our senior Linda Toth, senior Beth Landauer, senior Amy Landauer, senior Kelly Martin, and our unbelievable, incredible manager, Amir Ben Avi. Congratulations, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Thank you, Joan. Our women's tennis, Sharon Green Dansby.
Good evening. We had a wonderfully successful season. I enjoyed my first season of coaching, and we had a very difficult league that we play. We stressed skill development, and they promised me that at the end of this year that they were going to be ready for next year. They played really tough, and they're a wonderful group of girls to spend the afternoons with. There were a few that could not be with us this evening. 16 of our 23 girls on the tennis team qualified as scholar athletes. Lee Pincus could not be here this evening. Rachel Line, Joanna Olite, Jennifer Martin, Jessie Smith, Moeko Makami, and Julie Berman. I'm very proud to recognize the girls who are here this evening. Jenna Amakuchi, Rachel Fleischner, Brooke Abrams, Jessica Krumholtz, Mayan Kornblatt, Kylie Lewis, Sarah Beth Wager, Ariel Weber, Alana Sitkoff. Congratulations, girls. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. I would also like to acknowledge the varsity football team and the women's cross-country team who missed qualifying by just one student athlete. One more athlete and they both would have qualified. It's a wonderful statistic. Also, the men's soccer team and the women's volleyball team also did very well, but didn't qualify. So we're getting there. I would also, before I recognize the 9 individuals that were on the different teams that didn't qualify but carried a 90 or better average, I'd like to present this amazing statistic to the board. Last year, 15 of the 22 varsity teams were honored as New York State Scholar Athletes. That's an amazing statistic. Much, 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 much more important than our wins and our losses. I believe there's very few schools in the entire state that accomplish what our student athletes have accomplished. It amazes me every time I see it. Now, I'd like to recognize the following students who also had a 90 or better average but did not qualify. On the women's cross country, we have Kathleen Kiernan and Godami Sanyal. On the football team, we have Dominique Garfolo, Noah Friedman, and Marcus Walton. On our men's soccer team, we have David Imlay, Aaron Smith, and Craig Lee. And on our women's volleyball team, we have Catherine Agora, Nora Fernandez, and Jenna Polanski. Thank you very much this evening.
Thank you all for coming this evening. We're very happy always to have this as part of our regular presentation. And at this time, we'll take a brief recess. We'll now move on to section 2 of our agenda, which is communications. Michelle, are there any communications for the board? Okay. Then we'll move on to section 3, our summary action items, and we do have an addition and an amendment to items 11 and 12 that were given to us this evening with the backup. Is there a motion to add these 2 items to the summary action agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And the agenda is now amended. We now have in the summary action items then some 20 things, largely routine personnel matters, special education placements, recognition of a couple of donations, and the like. Saul, are there any of these that you would draw to our attention?
Let me call your attention to 2 items in particular. Item 2, the famous item 2, each month asks us to accept money and resources, so I'd like to talk about that. This month, there's a donation of $250 from Richard Brewer, who's connected with the Emanon Cafe downtown White Plains. This cafe runs supervised teen nights periodically, and Mr. Brewer has told us that every time there is a teen night, he will make a donation to White Plains High School for use by students. So this is the first of what we hope will be many. This is $250, and he says in his letter that he hopes that these funds will be used for out-of-school programs such as counseling or recreation in order to help improve the quality of time students spend outside the classroom. So I'm sure Mr. Colavito and his staff will find ways to use this money and subsequent payments. Secondly, we have a donation of $250 from William and Georgia Pollock, which is a payment that they have been making annually for several years for the purchase or repair of musical instruments for White Plains High School. So we're very appreciative to the Pollocks for their continuing the tradition of helping to support the music program at White Plains High School. And then finally, item 13, I called to your attention with a certain amount of sadness, and this is the acceptance of a resignation for the disability retirement of Jean Dubovec, a special education teacher at the high school. Jean is very ill. Despite his illness, he came in every day for as long as he possibly could to serve the students. Jean is a refugee who settled in White Plains, went through the system, graduated White Plains High School, and then came back on the staff in 1972. So he's been with us almost 30 years and has been as dedicated a teacher as we have experienced. So our best to Gene during these very difficult times. And I think everything else is pretty self-explanatory.
Any questions from board members as to any of these items? Yes, sir.
I wonder if we could just talk a little about number 11. I think that's the creation of an assistant director of facilities and operations position. I was a little unclear as to the rationale for that. Is it?
In the backup material that's presented, it identifies the recommendations provided from the efficiency study that was completed last year. And that study identified that we, in fact, should consider recommending an assistant director for facilities and operations. At the time that that recommendation was made, we had chosen not to take that recommendation and instead to replace the person who was retiring as the custodian supervisor. We went through the process twice in terms of trying to replace the custodian supervisor who had retired. We were unable to do that, and then decided that it would make sense to reclassify the position as the assistant director for facilities and operations and see if we would be successful in filling that particular position. The two positions are somewhat different. One would be a management confidential employee, that is the assistant director position. It would provide higher compensation. It would be a position that would provide for opportunities in terms of more supervision than the other position. But we, after looking at all alternatives, felt that this was the best recommendation to make at this time.
Yeah, I guess as I read it, it seemed as if the two positions had about the same salary.
Actually, they don't. The custodian supervisor position, the range was, as far as starting salary, between 43 and 48. The person who was retiring had a substantially higher salary, but that's because that individual had been in the organization for a number of years.
I didn't understand that from the backup. So one of the reasons you think you'll be successful is we're offering more money.
That's one of the reasons.
It has kind of a higher title and a slightly different set of responsibilities?
Yes, and a different type of schedule.
I'm sorry, I thought it was kind of parallel money, and I wasn't sure why we would attract somebody.
Okay.
Thanks.
Any further questions on that item? Any questions on any other items within the summary action portion of the agenda? Okay, if not, is there a motion that these 20 items be adopted?
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And the matters are adopted. We now move to the other action item, which are the items that we can consider individually. And on tonight's agenda, we have two such things. The first being the recommended approval of financial reports, the cash reconciliation report for October, and expenditure summary through November 1999. We've been given the backup in our materials. Are there any questions on these reports? Just a general question. I noticed that our certiorari's for the first half, well, not quite half of the year, are running amazingly low. Yes, less than $300,000. Is this the beginning of the long-awaited for trend of leveling off of certiorari's, or is it too early to tell yet?
Too early to tell, and that's not really what we're anticipating. We're anticipating the second half will have a lot more certiorari.
So we're just getting a breather. You don't expect the year itself to be...
Not based on the petitions that have been filed.
Okay. We know there's a few big ones in the works that are working their way through. Okay. Okay. Any other questions on these reports? If not, is there a report that the reports be approved?
So moved.
Or a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the reports are approved. And the last is, in the other action section, is the recommended approval of the final BOCES contract for the 1998-99 school year. As you know, each year we put a budget amount in for the BOCES contract, which is, at best, a projection of what BOCES services will be needed during the course of the year. Then when the year is over, we get the total accounting for the amount that has been expended. And the backup that's been provided to us shows that the budgeted amount for BOCES services in 98-99 was about $5.4 million. The amount actually spent was about $4.9 million, so there was a savings over the budgeted amount of about $500,000. Any questions to Dick or anyone on this matter?
Can I ask one question? Is this really a savings, or did we spend this money because we brought the kids back into the district? Because it said some of it, we didn't.
In some cases, it was a savings.
If we're talking about savings, you have to be on
It's a combination of things. In some cases, it in fact is a savings in that we spent less money as a district than what we anticipated for the services provided through BOCES, and we did not substitute other services within the district that would have had a cost to us. In other cases, we did provide some programs in the district for special education services, so then it was really a transfer from BOCES costs over to our own program. All of these dollars would have been factored into the fund balance that we had at year end for 98-99. What we'll be able to do is when we go through the budgeting process is to cross-reference all of our budgeted amounts back to the BOCES. We can also identify where we pulled students back from BOCES and service them in district.
So then we could find out really what our net savings was.
Well, yeah, the net savings really would have been the fund balance. I mean, that was our savings for the entire year. Yes.
Okay.
So that would have already been factored in, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Any further questions?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Dick, what percentage of this $4,000,009 is aidable?
Probably less than half. The special education costs are not aided. In addition, there are some costs associated with BOCES services where there's a cap. For example, we're only aided on a portion of salary costs by BOCES employees. And when you factor all of that into consideration, it would be about half of the approved expenditures are aided, and then our aid ratio is a little less than 40%.
Any further questions? If not, is there a motion that this amount be approved?
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The matter is approved. We next move on to board discussion, and this evening we have one item formally listed for discussion, and that is a change of policy regarding health examinations and immunizations. We have been given the proposed amendments to the policy, as well as a brief statement of the rationale. Just generally speaking, we can see that there's been a change in the legal requirement as to specifically what vaccinations are required for students entering into the 7th grade. And so we have a recommendation that we omit the listing of specific vaccinations that we require, include those into the rules, and make the policy simply state generally that all of the immunizations that are required under law will be given. Yes.
I have a question, because with the hepatitis shot, it's a series of one shot and then a year later, or is it 6 months, however it is, it's a series of shots. So does the law say that the child has to have the series completed by 7th grade or have had it started at least before 7th grade? So I don't know if just because, you know, again, I don't know what the law is, and should, just for memory's sake, for this one, should there just be a specific item just so people will remember? You know, I don't know.
I'm going to introduce the board because I think this is the first time that Brenda Madeira has addressed the board. She's our coordinator of school nurses. And Serena, for that technical question, I'd like Brenda to come up and address that.
The minimum requirement will be they started the series, which will be the first injection.
Okay, and do you think that because it is a series and over time so people don't have to, you know, refer to the law each time, should a line in the policy say that for hepatitis it's to have started so you don't have to keep referring in the future? I don't know.
Well, we really addressed this issue, Serena, and we thought that with the constant changes in immunization, there's another one, I think varicella is going to be coming up shortly, and there's constantly increased regulations on these issues. So we thought that the policy should be stated. What Brenda's planning on is a massive effort to ensure that all the parents are aware of the changes through the PTA newsletter, through other mechanisms, and other communications to the 6th grade parents about the requirements.
There's a mailing going out to all of the 6th grade parents right now.
So I think the communication issue is more critical than the specific wording of the hepatitis requirements in the board policy.
Okay. Can I ask one other question that may not, and I don't know if this is information that you could give the parents. In the past, this has not been covered by insurance. Because it's now mandated, do you know if most insurances will cover it, and is this something that you can tell parents?
Some insurances do cover it. The pediatricians are delving into it now also because it's going to become a big issue for them and their patients. So I'm sure in the future it will be covered.
Okay.
Can we offer alternatives for kids who don't have insurance or who don't have a private physician?
It's interesting that you mentioned that because we've been working on that right now. Brenda's been researching in what ways we can ensure that we can assist those families, not only because of the cost, because it's 3 separate injections, but also because of the timing. You have to ensure that these are families who, with their busy schedules, ensure that they meet it within the proper time frames. Otherwise, you have to begin the series over again. It becomes very complicated. So we are exploring it now. Brenda, I think you're looking both with the Department of Health.
Yeah, and the school nurses are actually looking at all the 6th grade immunization records to find out exactly where we are so we can get a handle on how many kids are meeting the requirement and how many are not, how many have maybe the first that need to get the series completed, and then we'll evaluate our need and take it from there.
My last question is, when I look at what you gave us, the tuberculin testing stays in. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Stays in the policy?
Yes, because that's testing. That's not a specific immunization. And that's very critical. With new entrants from foreign countries, we believe that's an essential ingredient.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes,
Does this apply to private school students? Or is this just public? Do we have a responsibility for the private school students in the city of White Plains? But it's the responsibility of those schools to inform them, not our district.
Okay, under our procedure, policies are not acted on the first month, so we will look forward to seeing this back next month, at which time we will move its adoption. Okay, are there any other items for board discussions that any board member would like to raise? Okay, if not, we will move on to open forum, which is the opportunity for anyone to address the district on any matter of concern about the district. So if you have a concern or a statement that you'd like to express to the board, now is your opportunity to come to the microphone and we will hear your comment. Yes, please come up to the mic. And I ask that when you come up that you identify yourself.
Good evening. My name is Milagros Lecuona. I am co-president from the White Plains High School from the PTA. Well, I don't have really a concern before, but after I hear about the immunizations, I had my own experience was that one of my kids had a shot, and somehow when they recorded it and he got the second shot, this communication from the different entities was not put together, let's say. The end point was that there was no recording with the years that they had already 2 shots, and so they gave him another 2 shots. So he finished having 5. My concern is that how are we going then to make it so that if a child gets a shot in one place and then the second it's in another place, that these 2 medical entities or whatever, they are really coordinated? Because your question to me is going to say, why didn't you say so? Because I didn't know. I thought that that coordination was already there in the computers or wherever. So that's my concern. Thank you.
Do you wish to respond? Yes, that'll be helpful.
A lot of the problems with immunizations come because of the way they're documented. We are really only supposed to accept actual certificates that are stamped. Sometimes when people move and their health records don't get, this actually is something you should have in your possession, but sometimes that doesn't happen. So we're really only supposed to accept those kinds of things. If there's a doubt, we really do have to immunize again. And that's really, it's difficult. We'd like to get it all on computer. It's going to happen in the near future. Right now, all we have are those records to go by. The jury is out on whether or not, if someone misses the exact time schedule of the hepatitis vaccine, whether or not they have to have them repeated. Sometimes people don't turn over, and when they do the titers, they're not at the immunization level that they'd like them to be. But we don't necessarily keep on giving the hepatitis B shots. That's something that's being looked into now. I'm sorry.
Linda, if I go to get a shot, should I ask the doctor for a certificate? So that I have a record in my hand when I leave?
He has it on your health record. The problem comes with school, where the children can't enter unless they have met our requirements. So I would say no. If your doctor has it in your health records, you're fine. It's always a good idea to keep a record at home too, but your doctor has your records. It's really school where it becomes a big issue.
I guess my problem is that I know a lot of families don't return to the same doctor. Is it helpful if they then have a record in their hand when they leave?
Yes. Most doctors' offices, the Department of Health, I mean, there's those little cards that they actually give to the parents where you can ask them to record your child's immunization status on them. And the cumulative health record follows the child throughout his school, all of his 12 years of school. So if you're in the system, it should be there.
Terrific. Thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone else who would care to address the board on any matter of concern? Okay. If not, is there a motion that the board adjourn into executive session? Okay. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? I'd like to take this opportunity to thank everyone for coming and for watching. We will see you in the new millennium. And I want to thank our TV crew tonight, Nancy Strauss, Carlos Alvarez, and our 2 student volunteers this evening, Bassem Bakhtar and Paul Kazenkoff. Thank you.